Welcome to Ralph Stuff number 41. 41 episodes now. This is a trip to URTV. Actually, it's a trip to URTV plus a little extra. Only takes me about 15 minutes to get there, so I threw in a trip up Town Mountain in Asheville. Show you what's up there, all the fancy houses and stuff. It's an excerpt from Rapid Ralph Runs Roads number 21. Please enjoy. I thought it might be interesting to film the trip from my home in Alexander. I'm returning on to Macedonia Road now to the studios of Channel 20 URTV to turn in a show. And it was a good trip, but it was about 16 minutes. It doesn't take me very long to get into Asheville. We're really only about 5 miles airline from downtown Asheville. So I decided, well, we'll just ride around all over Asheville and go to some interesting and weird places and show you that. So this episode of Rapid Ralph covers Asheville, the land of the sky, literally, as you'll see, from top to bottom, into some places that are mighty unusual. So I hope you enjoy it. As ever with me is Karen, the GPS unit. She's a little silver box there in the center of the dash, communicating mightily with the various GPS satellites, global positioning satellites, high above us, and the Lieutenant Colonel shocking all on four-wheel drive as we continue up the hill on Macedonia Road and moving on the French Broad River, which we will go across on the Craigie Bridge, the General Albert Boyd Bridge, and take River Drive, Highway 251, up into beautiful downtown Asheville. The Lieutenant Colonel, by the way, is an SUV, wide SUV, and he has a nice, powerful 6-cylinder engine. And I run nitrogen in the tires. That's something you might want to look up on the internet and see the advantages. Hi there, one of my neighbors. But you might want to look up nitrogen in tires on the internet and see the advantages of having them. I've noticed quite a bit of difference in handling and performance since I went to nitrogen in the tires rather than plain old air. And now, of course, I grew up out through here when I was, I don't know, 12 and 13, that age. This was still a dirt road, and I had a grit route. That was a newspaper that kids sold to raise a little extra money, and we sold them for 15 cents each, and we got to keep a nickel, and that was a pretty good deal back in those days. So I'd walk along this road or ride my bike along it every day, or every week rather, and sell grit to various people that be so kind as to buy it from me. That newspaper got a lot of entrepreneurs like myself started years ago. I don't know whether it's still published or not, but it meant a lot to me as a kid to have my own money and be able to buy stuff myself. So I worked hard at it for a number of years, and it paid off. Okay, I'm turning from Macedonia, actually we got onto Olivet Road and I didn't tell you, but now we've turned off Olivet onto the Old Lester Road, and we'll go down the mountain on the Old Lester Road until we get to the French Broad River, which is maybe half a mile, not very far. And we'll go across the General Albert Boyd Bridge at Craigie and head up Riverside Drive, 251 into Asheville. It's only a couple, 3 miles from there as we go through the great municipality of Woodfin to reach Asheville. So that's how we'll be going. The Old Lester Road, by the way, was one of 2 main routes from Asheville to Leicester back in the 19th century, and where it crossed down at Craigie there was a boat ferry, one of those flat bottom boats that went across the river, and the guy pulled on a rope to get it across and back and forth, and he would carry your horse and maybe your wagon across that way. There were several of those ferries up and down the French Broad River before bridges were built. But by the early 20th century, they had both a railroad bridge and a regular bridge over the French Broad at Craigie, and a railroad station at Craigie. Back in the late 50s, they tore down the railroad bridge, although you can still see parts of it there, and replaced the old bridge with a new bridge. I remember all that. And it was at that time they named it, and we can see it right ahead of us here, the General Albert Boyd Bridge. And as I've mentioned in several shows, General Boyd was called the fastest general in the Air Force. He grew up about a mile west of here and has since passed away, but he was Chuck Yeager's mentor. There's a whole chapter in Chuck Yeager's autobiography devoted to General Albert Boyd. And I met him once when I was a kid. He was a big hero then. The fastest general in the Air Force, they called him. He was in charge of the test pilot program, which, of course, Chuck Yeager was in when he broke the sound barrier for the first time. Back in 47, 48, something like that. I forget the exact date. As we continue up now on Riverside Drive, Highway 251, and we're heading up towards Asheville, and our goal on this part of the trip is Channel 20, to turn in a couple of shows that I have in the seat beside me. It's the old prison camp and the current maintenance sheds for the Department of Transportation, the fine folk who keep our roads up and running, or so we can run on them. And they do a great job with a very limited budget, and I'm amazed the roads stay in as good a shape as they do. There's a railroad just to the right, and then just beyond that line of trees is the French Broad River. They don't use this part of the railroad anymore. Remember I told you about the old railroad bridge? It used to go down there and cross the French Broad that way. Now they come down on the other side of the river, and that part of the track is still active. You see freight trains on it a lot. But this side, even after they tore down the railroad bridge, had a spur down to the old Burlington textile factory down below Craigie, but it's since gone away also. And they don't use the track anymore. In fact, it's blocked by several old railroad cars just sitting there. And we continue on up. We're in Woodfin now. This is part of the town of Woodfin, which was established to keep Asheville from expanding to the north. And it's worked very well for the last 20-some years. Of course, now Woodfin is expanding. But all these municipalities in Asheville, and I never miss a chance to mention this, are keen on annexation. In North Carolina, by law, annexation of by a municipality of an area, a rural area, is involuntary. That means folk in the area being annexed have no say in the matter and wind up getting their taxes doubled for little or no increase in services. It's taxation without representation. It's not a nice thing to do, so Asheville, cut it out. And you too, Woodfin. No more annexation. Live with what you got. Build buildings higher instead of expanding. Okay, enough of that lecture. And we're turning off of Riverside Drive and taking the access road up to future I-26, 19-23 at the moment. And eventually, somewhere along this stretch that we're going on right now, they'll build the big new bridge across the French Broad River, and it will become permanent I-26. Right now, future I-26 goes across the Smoky Mountain Bridge, which tends to have a lot of accidents around 5 o'clock. But that bridge does not meet the, you saw a 26 sign there on the right as we went by it. That bridge does not meet the requirements for an interstate highway, so it has to be bypassed and will be turned into just a bridge for local traffic, which will be great. That will help a lot. Traffic's not too bad on this part of 26 at the moment, but check it out about 5 o'clock in the evening, and it's bumper to bumper all along this area, and especially across the river and out through Malfunction Junction, where I-40 and I-26 coincide. There went a couple charter buses by me, folks out touring the southeast, I suppose, and that's good. Said right lane 26 to go over the river, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go left onto I-240 and go for a mere 2 or 3 blocks before we turn off onto Charlotte Street, and then go on over to the URTV studios. And you will get to see me drive into the parking lot of URTV. We've been on the road now just about 12 minutes from the time I left home. So you see, I really don't live very far out of Asheville, even though it looks like it's way out in the country, and believe me, that is good. We like living in the country, but we have all the advantages of being able to pop into the city. Also for the restaurants and the shopping and the good stuff that cities are worth having. Just build taller buildings and don't annex anymore. Okay, here we go. It's always a little bit of an effort to get on I-240 here without getting creamed by a truck or a bus or something large and belching diesel smoke. Folk don't tend to slow down too much on I-240. Despite it being right in the middle of town, they just buzz on through. We could use another couple lanes on each side here, and I think eventually traffic's going to grow to the point where we'll have to do that. Anyway, we're crossing town. This is the fastest way to do it, to get over to the Channel 20 studios. URTV, support your local public access television. Now, straight ahead, you can see all the houses built up on the mountains in among the trees. And looking over to the left there, after we finish at URTV, we're going to take you up on top there and drive you around, let you see all the houses. And then I'll come back down and we'll go through downtown Asheville and around, and then out to West Asheville. So you get to see some interesting places later in the show here. Not that these places here aren't uninteresting, they are. There's some good stuff. It's a big dome over there, that's the First Baptist Church. It's Art Deco church that was built back in the 1920s. Several of the Art Deco buildings left downtown. Art Deco being a style of architecture and design that was popular from the 1920s through the 30s. And Asheville has more Art Deco buildings extant, that means still standing, for those of you who don't have a dictionary handy, than most cities do, except for Miami Beach, for example. And that's because Asheville ran into a lot of trouble back during the Depression, and took the city 50 years to pay off the going bankrupt back in the early 30s. And by the way, that's a very commendable thing, rather than just writing off the debt like a lot of towns have done. Asheville actually paid it off. And I hope we get some city council people again who are that honorable. But anyway, again, the point I was making, those Art Deco buildings are still here, not because they were preserved, but just because the city was in such dire straits financially, and it just wasn't economically viable to build a lot of new buildings. Doesn't mean we shouldn't now, although yes, I would like to see some of the old buildings preserved. They're pretty nice. We got a nice city hall, except for the city council, as aforementioned. As we turn here, this is Highway 694 that goes up Bowcatcher and Town Mountain. It's called Town Mountain Road, actually. But we're going to take a brief detour here and go over to URTV. And we're quite pleased with URTV. Do a lot of work for it, have a lot of shows on, such as Rapid Ralph Runs the Roads, this very show. See the building with the A, that's where the studios of URTV are now. You can see the sign up there. As I look for a parking place here, that's one of my fellow producers and members who was getting some stuff out. They're doing a live show. This was on Saturday afternoon, about 3 o'clock or so. And now we've turned in our show and we're getting back on the road, and we're going out to the end of the street here, and then still turning left and going through downtown Asheville. Although we will do that in a little while. We're going to turn right and go up Town Mountain. People have built on Town Mountain for many decades, but it's increased exponentially now with all the new people moving into Asheville. And there are a lot of houses up there in among those trees, as we mentioned earlier. And we're going to go up there and look at some of them. And we're moving up above Asheville. There's some great views of downtown Asheville from up here. Some great places to take photography, or to take photographs. And I've marked one place where I really want to get the skyline of Asheville with a very good camera. Unfortunately, it was so hazy on this day that I didn't stop and take the photograph. Some of that haze, by the way, is smog. That's a dirty word that the city of Asheville folks that promote the city of Asheville don't like to mention, but we're in this big mountain valley, and if it gets hot, and the thermal layers can keep the exhaust from cars and whatnot down, and we do have some smog from time to time. So it's not that clean mountain haze. Not always anyway. It's not fog, it's smog. But the nice thing about it is you can always jump in your car, and which contributes to the smog, yes, but you can get up here in the heights, the mountain heights, and get back to fresh air again. Should that become something that you would like to do. And as we go on up Town Mountain Road, Highway 694, you stay on this, and in about 4 or 5 miles or so, it dead ends into the Blue Ridge Parkway. And you can turn left and go on up to Mount Mitchell. That's a great trip. Mount Mitchell is only about 30 minutes or so drive from here. And it's the highest point in eastern America. You can really get up above the heat and the hustle and bustle of the lower lands. Okay. Now I'm going to, we're not going to go too much farther on. By the way, to the right there is Sealy's Castle. They have barbed wire and stuff. Well, I'll mention again as we come back down. You can't go in there and look at it. Sealy's Castle was built by Fred Sealy, who was the son-in-law, I believe, of E.W. Grove, who built the Grove Park Inn. He was a Patton Madison king. He built the Grove Park Inn, the arcade building downtown, and the Battery Park Hotel. Okay, we're going to turn here and go up to I'm not sure if this is Sunset Mountain or Patton Mountain. You know, I've lived here all my life, but like most natives, I just go places. You know, we know where they are. We don't have to know their name. But I think this is Sunset Terrace we're going up. And there are a lot of people live here, way up in the mountains. And there are a lot of people now live much higher than this on mountains on beyond this. All you have to do is walk along the street in downtown Asheville and look up. There are houses all over the place. I personally would not want to live up here because in the summer you have lightning and in the winter you have snow and ice. Okay, we're going to turn, what's the name of that street? Well, I didn't see it. But I know where it is, and I know how to get back out of it. But you can see, we went up what looked like a pretty wild mountain, and here we are in a residential area on top of the mountain. We're several hundred feet in elevation above Asheville now, or let me rephrase that, above the downtown part of Asheville. This is still part of the city of Asheville, even up here on the mountains, on the mountaintops. Asheville's one of the few cities in the United States that actually have complete mountains in the middle of it that are included within the city limits. So I always consider that to be a unique feature of the town. You see, there's some pretty nice houses up here, and I'm sure the folk that live in them enjoy it, and that's fine. I enjoy driving through here occasionally. We're not too far from the governor's western residence, by the way, which has been here for a great many years, probably from World War II or before. And I don't know how often governors actually use the residence, but from time to time they have various events at it. I've been to the governor's western residence on more than once for different affairs. So that's a little tidbit of information most people don't know, that the governor has a place here in Asheville, and probably other places around the state also, as well as the governor's mansion in Raleigh. Quick, who's the governor of North Carolina? I think it's still Mike Easley. You never know. Could have been a revolution in Raleigh by now. Next year we'll be electing a new governor. I have no idea who's running yet. I'm not. I wouldn't want the job. I'd rather stay up here in Asheville where it's cool. And you see we're pretty high up, but we're still in this residential community on Town Mountain. I'm pretty sure this is Town Mountain. And Bowcatcher's the next over. But we got Bowcatcher and Sunset and Town Mountain, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up for you rather than just guessing. I'll get around to it and tell you in one of these shows. And okay, now we've come all the way back around. We did a loop, actually. I should have told you we were going to do that. That's originally an apartment complex over there. It was called Tierra Apartments, and now it's been sold for condos long since. But people thought they were crazy when they built an apartment building on top of the mountain here back in I think 70s, and perhaps they were, but it's whoever did the development or owned it at the time made a lot of money by selling condos. That's the entrance to Celia's Castle. I've been up there for a while. It's a big fine house that he built. It has a secret room and everything. And for many years after Fred had died and passed away, Asheville Biltmore College, which became the University of North Carolina at Asheville, used it as a campus. But Asheville Biltmore College kept expanding and became part of the University of North Carolina system and changed its name and now has a huge campus over in North Asheville. Very nice campus. It's a good college. It's a good university. And one of the several good, fine institutes of learning here in western North Carolina. But we're still up in up above downtown Asheville, but rapidly descending down to downtown. Down to downtown. That's what alliterative is, isn't it? Down to downtown Asheville. And I'm going to take you right through downtown Asheville and around some, and you'll get to see a little bit of that. For those of you who haven't seen it before, or else you haven't seen it from this particular angle. And we'll be, it's too bad the foliage is up so much, you can't really see the view of Asheville from up here, but in the winter's a good time to come up when there's not snow and ice on here, because you can see forever. But today we're not looking to see forever, we're looking to see downtown Asheville, so let's get on back down the mountain, and we will. There's some kudzu on the side of the road. Go watch that kudzu. They'll follow you home and strangle your car. And your cat and your dog too. Kudzu was one of the great mistakes here in the South. I remember when I was a kid and we had some gullies that were eroding badly on the farm as we come out of the trees and see the skyline of downtown Asheville. Skyline. But anyway, we had these gullies that were eroding. This was in the 1950s, and the county agriculture extension agent came out and said, "I got just the thing, Mr. Roberts, to stop your erosion. It's called kudzu." And he gave my dad a bunch of, or maybe Dad had to buy them, I don't know, but he gave him a bunch of these little plants to plant, and we planted them, and they've been trying to get rid of them ever since. We bulldozed them and burned them and done all sorts of stuff, and you gotta do all that, keep them under control, but stay away from the kudzu. They'll creep out after you. That's the courthouse and the jail over on the left, and they're building a new building on the right. I just noticed that the other day. We're going to the famous roundabout, Infernal Roundabout, as many of us think of it. It's I don't understand the theory behind roundabouts, but they put it down there, and I think as an experiment, so we may get stuck with more of them around town. Hopefully not. It's the Jackson building up to the left with the gargoyles sticking out at the side of it. That's a beautiful building. And straight ahead, I'm not sure what's in there now. That may be that was the Axona building when took over the Inca plant out in Inca a number of years ago and built their headquarters there. And then they sold out to another company, and the plant since closed, I believe, or is essentially pretty much out of business compared to what it was. This is College Street. Folk walking along, enjoying downtown Asheville. And we're moving on through it ourselves. And there's a parking garage. Go to ralphwroberts.com to see this show again.